It's been a while. I was I'm not making videos. I was suffering from fever and all. So basically, this is a series of interview questions I'll be sharing. So this is interview has happened with APT. So one of my friend has attended for this question. These has faced these questions. So this is the first round. I'll be sharing second round and third round, and there is a fourth. In fourth, there is a client round, and I had the opportunity to capture the HR, mm, audio as well. I'll try to post that as well. Okay, so this is the first round of first round phase of list of questions he has faced basically. So basically, he would be asking the introduction yourself or the roles and responsibilities. So you could say, like, how much experience you have, and in which company you're associated with, and all the things, and what are the tools you have been working, and mentioning, like, what are the roles you have you have been doing. So try to make a list of all those things. Basically, you should be master those introduction, so it will make a good impact. So post that. The first question is like, what is a, like, Docker multi-stage. So in that you could, if you have, if you know the answers of these questions, you could skip this video. If you try to follow the answers, you can continue with me, like, so for these questions, what is a multi-stage Docker file? So if we have a, multiple Docker images to be write in single file, so we segregate all these Docker images into multiple Docker images. So in this case, we can use multiple from commands, and we can use the alpine images, so that it will create a uh, so that it will makes the Docker file as a multi-stage Docker file basically. So after saying this question, the next question he has asked, like, so all the images are in the same file, so then how it could be the lightweight basically. So okay, uh, okay, in that case, actually, so even though all the images are in the same file, but we will be making the container from the last, whatever the images. So like, so we have the images, and by using that image, we will be making the container out of the images, the last images. So that's how it would be the lightweight basically. So in the case of, like, we have Java, we have Maven, we have the Tomcat and all. So if we write all these base images in the single file, Docker file, so it would, the final container would have all the three images. Otherwise, if you do from for the first, first images, you could do the from command, and you could pull the Java alpine images and do the thing. And after that, you could build by using Maven alpine image. And after that, you could push the things into the Tomcat folder, and you could create the last image out of the Docker file. And you try to create the container out of the last images. So that's how, whatever the final container we are creating, the final create will have all the Tomcat container in it. So that's how it would be lightweight. uh, and the next question is like, it would be a scenario based question, I guess. So I have a Ubuntu machine, and a Git repository. So the Git repository has a code, okay, the source code. So now explain end to end flow how you have performed the continuous deployment. So in this case, what you could do is, like, so in the Ubuntu machines, I have installed I have installed the Git, I have installed the in the case of Java, you could tell, like, I have installed the Maven, I have installed the Jenkins, and I created some the pipeline script by using continuous, I mean to say, the declarative pipeline. I wrote the pipeline by using the declarative pipeline. The my declarative pipeline has all the jobs, like, get the code from the SCM, and building the image. And after that, it will you could you could store your artifact into Nexus or JFrog, anything, and post that you will be deploying those images, those war files, into the Tomcat. Or in the case of EKS, or in the case of Kubernetes, you could post those things into the the Kubernetes. So in case how you have performed the continuous deployment flow, you could master that thing and you could say, it would be very helpful. And after that he has asked what are all the plugins you have worked on so it would be, I guess it would be on Jenkins. So once we have said like I have knowledge in Jenkins, so in that case he would be asking what are all the plugins you have worked on. So in that case what you could say like you should list, down the what are all the plugins you have been working on. Like, so you should say like, I have worked on like a Maven integration, Git, and like I meant to say the Sonar Cube, the Jacaco plugin. You could list out what are all the plugins you have been using, like the publish over SSH, the converter to pipeline, to convert the freestyle project to the pipeline project. And you could say like, in the case of Kubernetes, you could say like I have worked on Kubernetes deploy, Docker pipeline, and audit trail for, who has done what in the Jenkins, to track who has done what are all the what are all things on top of Jenkins. You could use arbitrary plugin, and you could say like deploy to container plugin, thin backup plugin, import job plugin, and Ansible Tower plugin. So there are plenty of tons of plugins are available for the Jenkins. So you could list down all the plugins, and you could try to make a notes on what plugin is doing what. So in that case, you could face this question in a good manner. And what are all the custom plugins you have worked on? So basically I know I don't work on custom plugins as such, but you could do some research, and you could make a note of this thing, and you could answer this question. So I have a Docker container in default network. So after Jenkins he has stepped into the Docker, I guess. Okay, so I have a Docker container in default network. Connect how can I connect with container? Okay, basically Docker has its own networking thing actually. So in Docker, when we like in default network, so by default when we create any container, it will store in the default bridge network basically. So by using the internal port and port number, it will connect to the container basically. So how I have a base image like a CentOS. So this is also from the Docker, I guess. Okay, I have a base image like CentOS colon latest. How can I install app on images? So this is bit tricky. So actually what he's trying to asking like, I have, okay, so you in this case you can write the Docker file. You could use from CentOS colon latest, and now on top of that you could use some run command or CMD commands. What are the some commands, and you could use those commands to install any application on top of that images. So you could say in that case, in that way, maybe what I know till now. Okay, how many containers are there in pod by default? By default, okay. So when we create any pod, by default it will have the one image called pause container. By default it has, and the another container is like whatever the container we are trying to put in the like the pod. So it could be the default container what we are creating, or if in the case of Nginx, it will have the Nginx container and pause container. Actually I did some googling and I got to know that this is a new question. I got to know that. And what what is the key difference you found declarative versus scripted way? Basically he's jumping between Jenkins and Docker, I guess. So there are two ways of writing. There are two ways of you know in Jenkins we could write pipelines in two ways, right? So he asking in that question, he is asking the question in that way basically. So for that, so what I as I know, like there is a syntactical difference between scripted way and declarative way. The declarative way starts with the pipeline and the agent and the stage and the what are the steps we want to perform in that particular stage. Post that, in scripted way we have only node and the stage. The syntax, there is a difference between these two pipelines. Syntactical difference is there. And apart from the syntactical difference is like declarative way don't allow it won't allow groovy injection. groovy injection. Whereas the scripted way of pipeline will allow you to do the groovy injection basically, and the declarative way is a little bit easy to write, whereas the scripted way is little bit hard to write. There is a only core programmer can do and understand this kind of a scripted way basically, and declarative way is bit advanced, sorry, and the scripted way is the older one basically. So in this way you could also do your own research, and you could do find try to find the best answers as you could. And what do you understand in Docker networks? Maybe he might not have satisfied with this answer. So basically, yes, okay. What do you understand by Docker networks? Okay, Docker has its own networking policy. Like, even though two Docker containers are in the same host, they may not connect. They may not communicate. So if they are in the same network, the containers could communicate with each other, and we can create the Docker network by using Docker network create. Uh, whatever the network name you want to give, and by the command by using Docker network ls, you could list down all the available networks in the particular Docker. So this is how way you need to give some clarity on this basically. What are all the best ways to create a Docker files? Yes, okay. uh, Docker files, okay, there are some 8 to 10 files are there. There is a CSI brand, I mean to say there is a benchmark, so you could you could search this. Basically what I have in my mind, like, you could use the lightweight images. I mean to say you could use always use the Alpine images, and you could use the official images. And there are some outsource, open source images also, Alpine images also there. But you should go with the every time you should go with the official images. And on top of that, you could if you have multiple images in your Docker files, you should go with the multi-stage Docker files basically. So this is how you can answer this question. And there are some other best ways to create the Docker files. And this is the most and most important. And every interview, if they want to test you in the Docker, this is the frequent question I've been getting. And I have been answering this question: what is the difference between CMD and entry point? So in the instruction Docker instructions file, there is this is the these are the commands, instructions basically they are called as. So the CMD command is can be overridden, and the entry point cannot be overridden. Like, we have the Tomcat application. So we have the Tomcat. So I want to all the time, I want to do the start, but sometimes I want to do the restart. So in that case I will pass entry point with the Tomcat, and do the restart. Start instruction, I'll try to push it, give. But I want to restart the Tomcat, particular Tomcat. So in that case what I will do, I will use a CMD, and I'll try to give the restart instruction at the runtime. If I give the restart, so the CMD will be get overridden, and it will pass that instruction to the entry point. So it may confuses. So in the short way, CMD can be overridden, entry point cannot be overridden, and the CNB can be can be passed as argument for the entry point. These are the 2 points you should remember. And so has asked, like, what is the ENV versus argument? Okay, these two are the instructions basically. So ENV, like, uh, env can access inside the image and container basically. So when we are creating the image, i'm I mean to say, you could pause it is in the Docker file, and you could use it in the container. And the basic the arg instruction can access only inside the images, so it cannot be accessed like inside the container. So this is the basic difference. And it's like, the argument arg command, it's like a variable which we can define in Docker files basically. So the scope of this variable only up to the creating the images, it cannot access inside the container. Whereas the environment, it could be available in the container, and we could use this as a while creating the Docker image. And we could, by using this env, we could set environment variables for an image, and we can make access these environment variables in a container also, like basically. So this is a basic difference between env and argument. And what are difference between cmd and run? cmd and run, basically these two are to, like, to install any particular software in top of in the Jenkins, sorry, in the Docker, basically. uh, cmd and entry points, I'm what it could be. Just give me a second. Yeah, basically the cmd, cmd is like a, the run is used to set up your image. Basically, you can download and install your required software while creating the image. So for this use case, we use the run instruction, whereas the cmd is used to execute the commands. The cmd command will be executed while creating the container, basically. So while creating the image, we will go for, while creating the image, if you want to install any software, we go for the run command. And while creating the container, if you want to install any uh, software, we go for the cmd. This is the basically the basic difference. And what are the best ways to run what are the best ways to run cmd and entry point? Okay, I did some googling and I got to know that, to run these commands we can use, there is a shell way. Actually, there is a executive way. So executive form and shell form, basically. So if we run these commands as a, in the executable format, the process will be run as a parent process. And you know if we run cmd and entry point as a, in the shell form, I mean to say in the executable form. So this process will be run as a parent process. if we run if we use cmd and entry point with the shell form, the process runs as a child process. So you try to give it some googling, bro. Googling, you will get to know, basically. And how can I pass environment variables while building the images? Okay, how can I pass environment variables while building the images? So we could pass the environment variables while building and running the containers. So in the case of building the images, you could give the argument. You could use the instruction called argument. You could use like docker build hyphen hyphen arg var name, and by using dollar and variable name, you could pass the arguments while building the images. And you could also pass the variables while running the container. You could use the environment variables in that case, argument while creating the images, and the environment while creating the containers, basically. So what are all Docker volumes? So if we want to our containers data need to be get persisted, in that case we go for the Docker volumes. Basically, we can use regex and rexray. There are some third party softwares are available. We could use them, and by using Docker volume create, we could create the Docker volume, so that the container data will be persisted in that volume. Even if the container dies, or even if the container stop for a while, the data will be persisted in those values. For this case, we use the Docker values. And are the Kubernetes certificates are encrypted or encoded? Okay, so okay, are the K8 certificates are encrypted or encoded? As I know, Kubernetes certificates are encoded, and this data is the certificates data will be available in the API server. But I need to look into it, basically. Encrypted or encoded? Okay, this is this tricky question. And what is the difference between Ingress and load balancer? Yes, this is also I'm getting a lot of times. So as you know, like, the load balancer will create one external load balancer in the cloud, and it will, by using node port, the outside traffic will communicate, talk to the nodes, and by using the node port and IP. Post that, by using the selector and labels, the service will talk to the pods in the case of load balancer. Whereas in the Ingress, if we have multiple microservices and we want to do some host based routing and path based routing, and in that case we use the Ingress. And in the Ingress rules YAML file, there is a Ingress rule YAML file is there. So in the concept of Ingress, we specify all the the host based routing, the rules and path based rules, so that the external load, by using single load balancer, we could distribute the load between all the microservices. So in the case of microservices, we go for the Ingress, and in the case of single application, we go for the load balancer. This is the use case of a load balancer and the basic difference between Ingress and load balancer. If I have if I have a load balancer service and my Kubernetes is on premise, okay, okay, my Kubernetes is on VM. Okay, I meant to say he might be on premise on VM. Then how it works? Okay, so in this case, he might have give answer like, if I create the load balancer, one external load balancer will create in the cloud. So in the case of AWS, one ELB will created. Okay, but if I use a load balancer and if my Kubernetes is on premise, so how the traffic will route? So this is his question. So in that case, what we could give, like, we will create one Nginx service, we could create one front end load balancer, and in that case we could use the Nginx for load balancing purpose, and we could use by using reverse proxy we could achieve this as well for for on premise Kubernetes thing actually. Okay. Have you worked on Argo CD? Argo CD. Okay. So people are also looking for Argo CD, I guess. Argo CD, I have never worked on it. I need to look into it. Okay. Guys, you also try to look into Argo CD as well. Okay. How do you customize AMIs in AWS? Okay. So AWS provide the default AMIs, Amazon Machine Images. So if I want to customize, so like uh, like we have an instance, and on top of that I want to have Java, and I want to have the Tomcat. So I want to create, so this would be the customized image. So we go to the EC2 instance, and we just we have the, and on top of, right, we have actions. We will on top post that, we will have the, like, create a image section is there. So by using that options, we could create the customized images. So in that images, it will create one template. By using that template, whenever we launch a EC2 instance, that EC2 instance will have all the packages in the template what it has, basic. Okay. What are all the services you worked on AWS? Okay, post that he has asked. So in that case, you could say, like, what are all the services you have worked on. But as a DevOps engineer, you could at least say 5 to 10 services, like EC2, VPC, Route 53, ELBs, ASGs, and little bit CloudWatch, SNS. There are step functions, SQS, Lambda. So there are a lot of services out there, but you could at least say, like, EC2, VPC, Route 53, ELBs, service. The CloudWatch. You should try to mention, and you should try to talk on them, speak on them, try to. So okay, he might have mentioned I worked on CloudTrail. So in that case, the question is like, what is CloudTrail? So CloudTrail is like, it's a service. So it will track the users, what are all the things they have done in the AWS. So if particular user has launched some EC2 instances, if our the project manager or architect want to know who has done what in the AWS infra. So by go to the cloud trail, he could come to know that which particular service has been opened by the created by the which particular resource in the AWS. I mean to say, which particular person has done what in the AWS services. They could come to know that. Okay. How can I store all the logs of CloudTrail? So for storing the CloudTrail, we could use the S3, or we could use the CloudWatch metrics. And what is the difference between NaCl and security groups, guys? This is the most, the most and most frequently asked question in the AWS. As a DevOps engineer, if you tell that like I have worked on AWS, so this would be the go-to question for the recruiter. So what is the difference between NaCl and security group? So the NaCl acts as a firewall in the subnet level is one thing, and in NaCl we could we could allow or block any particular IP. So this is one thing. And in the security groups, so the security groups is acts as a firewall in the EC2 level basically. And in the case of security group, we could only allow the particular IPs, but there is no option to block the IPs. So this is you need to mention. So my friend has already cleared this round, and he has faced second round, and actually he has got the job as well. So there are like he has faced 5 rounds, 4 technical rounds and one HR round. So the HR also some has she has asked she has also asked some technical rounds and something. I'll try to post those videos as well. And guys, try to make your own answers out of these things, and be prepared well. All the best. Thank you.